It has begun. The curse has struck again. We were too weak to stop it. Today we're renovating the old, not so old gift shop because I hated the first version, and so now we're building a completely new gift shop, now with full interior. Now before we actually get started, don't forget to like and subscribe button if you want to see more. Now let the crazy begin. Before we actually get started, I first wanted to ask you guys a question, which is, would you guys be interested in videos where the focus of the voiceover is the build itself and explaining the build as the video goes on, even if it means that these videos would be significantly shorter compared to the main videos? I would estimate that these videos would be around 10 to 15 minutes. So let me know down below in the comments if you're interested in these kinds of videos where I'm all about explaining the build, not even if these videos would then be significantly smaller. Now, to elaborate on what these videos would then be, they wouldn't be full tutorial videos. I'm horrible at tutorial videos. I can explain things, but to make a full tutorial, I think I'm not the right person for that. But it would be just like a 10 to 15 minute video of me building smaller builds, because what you're seeing right now, I wouldn't be able to build in 10 minutes unless I would put it on like 1,000 times its own speed. But it would be like building a kiosk or a facade and me explaining why am I using these pieces, why am I using them this way, how am I building, what techniques am I using, why did I settle on this color palette, why did I build it here. Basically just explanatory videos where it's all about the build itself, but they are shorter, and these would also then be sort of in between the main videos. So it wouldn't mean that the rambly videos would be gone. It would just be like in between these videos. Whenever I'm building something smaller that now gets sort of squished in with the main videos, I would make that into a separate video where it's a lot more, I wouldn't say professional because I'm still a chaotic mess, but it would definitely be a lot more about the build itself and not just the rambling. So again, let me know down below in the comments if you would be interested in these videos. Now we should probably also talk, why did I ask this? Why am I thinking of making these videos? It's because I recently got a comment, and I've gotten comments similar to these ones before, where it's basically saying, hey, I really like the videos, I really like the builds, however, I would prefer if the voiceover was less chaotic and would be more focused on the build itself. I've gotten comments like these before, and I've always kind of been interested in doing more like explanatory videos, but I was really scared to then have to go into tutorial videos, which I'm really bad at. I will just say that like that's one of my weakest points, is explaining things in like a step-by-step process. So it wouldn't be a full tutorial, but it would kind of be in between that, between just like complete chaos and full tutorial. So it would be explanation and all about the build itself, but it wouldn't just be like step by step, this is how I do it, this, or this is what you should do, and that. But anyways, again, this is the third time now. Let me know if you're interested in these kinds of videos. This again doesn't mean that the main videos would be gone, because there's always going to be huge builds that wouldn't really fit into a template like that where it's like 10 minutes. Because this is already, like what you're watching right now is already sped up significantly. And if I speed it up a little even more, that would just be probably nausea-inducing. Like movement, sickness and such. So I wouldn't do it with like the big builds like this. It would be like the small kiosks, facades, maybe some like nature sometimes. Well, probably one time. Anyways, again, let me know if you're interested in it. Put your answer down below in the comments. And now, back to the chaos, because it didn't take long before the curse hit, did it? And with that, I mean, like, if you're wondering what is the curse is Poison can't stop going back into old builds, ripping them out, and then renovating them. And that provides a deadly cycle of just like, oh, I build something, I build something else, I build something else, and I go back to the first build, rip it out, renovate it, which then means none of my projects ever got finished. Looking at you, Naturalis. Also, recently, just like my brain has been completely taken over by Planet Coaster, so I've also started building the first coaster. So that would maybe be the next big video. Then I also have something already planned for a smaller video as like a test. But anyway, so yes, why did I remove the old gift shop? It's because I really didn't like it. It was just the color scheme, like the sort of yellowish brick with the brown details. Yeah, yellow and brown is not really a good combination, especially if it's those kinds of shades of yellow and brown. And also just the dimensions of the original build were way off. Like, I'm talking about dimensions, it's like not just the overall height of the building, but also like the individual layers in between. Because like the size of a room or the height of a room or a floor was like 5 to 6 meters. Or they said that's what it felt like. Meanwhile, the building next to it, with the previous video, with all of those facades, the average floor height was like 3 meters. Like they were kind of more realistically sized. But because you're going to use one building as your like normal building, then every other building that kind of breaks those dimensions is going to stand out. Now that works if you want something to stand out. Like, I think you use this or they use this with like Disney, where if they want the building to stand out, they kind of change the dimensions and such. But it can also end up being horrible, where the other building that stands out looks really freakish. And that's what ended up with the gift shop, where it just weirdly it looked way too big. Even if the building wasn't really big itself, because of the weird dimension shift between all of the buildings next to it, it just looked freakishly large. It looked weird. So that combined with the color scheme and the fact that I really wanted to make an interior, was just like, yeah, I'm going to rip out this gift shop. It was nice knowing you, but I think that this gift shop looks a lot better. Also, I just went complete chaotic with the actual interior, because why would I not build mannequins and plushies and all of that stuff? Now, I would say it's not the best because it's really dark in the gift shop. Like, really dark. I've put lights in just so that during the daytime, like at nighttime it's not that bad because then everything lights up. I actually really like how Mythos, the main street, is looking right now because of all of the lights with like the new techniques for windows that I'm using. But at daytime, when those lights aren't off and the only light source is the windows, it's really dark. Luckily, there's some lights that are actually lit up the entire day. Like most of the street lights, I think you can't set them to be lit up at daytime, or I haven't found how you can do that. But I found some lights that lit up during the day, and they are a godsend, because otherwise this gift shop would be really dark. And now, I didn't build the backside of this gift shop. I think I'm going to do that for like a separate video, just building the back stages of these buildings. But I am so happy with how this one turned out. Just because it's a lot lighter, it feels a lot airier, it's a lot bigger actually. It doesn't feel as bigger, it definitely is bigger. Like it's as big as the second to last building from the last facade videos, or from the last video. So it's definitely big. And I would assume that there would be like offices or something above, or there would be storage above the actual gift shop. It feels a lot more open, and it feels a lot more dainty, if that's the correct word for it. Like it feels a lot more delicate. I'm just using synonyms of other words now, I think. But it's just, the color scheme fits in a lot more with the other buildings. Now, I was going to talk about the facade that I built next to it, but that's going to be its whole other video. But just because it's kind of mixing with the color scheme of the other buildings, it stands out a lot less. It still stands out because it's significantly larger, there's significantly more decoration, but it's not an eyesore. Like, you can build something that stands out and then immediately becomes an eyesore. And then that just adds chaos, which sometimes can work really well. Now, not the eyesore thing. Generally, if something becomes an eyesore, you don't want to have it. You want to make it so that it stands out. Even ugly buildings, like usually like haunted houses and such, stand out, but they're not really an eyesore. It's because like the style or the way that it looks helps with the actual function. But yeah, the original gift shop, it was just an eyesore. Funnily enough now though, like the centerpiece of the main street, or at least the original centerpiece, like the first building that you saw walking into Mythos, with the ways that I've been sort of making it blend in with the rest, it still stands out. Even if it's significantly shorter than this building, it still stands out because it's like it's facing the entrance. It has these huge windows, a lot of decoration, so it still stands out even if there are significantly larger buildings behind it. Also, I would almost say take a shot every time I say significantly, because I think I've said it like 15 times already. But then I also don't want you guys to end up in a coma or have like liver issues from an overdose of alcohol, so don't do that. Just, you know, maybe you can take a shot, but it's like orange juice or like a shot of glass or a shot of water. Although you could also just take too much water. Like, that's the thing. If you drink too much water in a short time, I think there's something as water poisoning. So, maybe take a breath of air. Like, just step outside and come back in whenever I say significantly. If it's like Norway or Canada, like, is there anything that I can make you guys do that wouldn't in some way, if done excessively, just go completely wrong? Like, maybe one of you guys is like a researcher at the Arctic and I'm just like, yeah, go outside, and you freeze your balls off. At least take a photo of the penguins or the ice bears. No, the Arctic is north, so that would be ice bears. Antarctica is south, right? I had geography tests in high school, but as soon as I left the classroom after finishing one of those tests, I completely forgot all. Like, there were geography tests of like the world and like capital cities. I still remember most of those. Most, not all, but a lot of them I still vaguely remember. But like all of the cities in the Netherlands itself, I just completely forget. Like, I know where Amsterdam lies, but like all of the other towns, like if it's not like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, or Utrecht, I have no idea. So for any of you Dutch people watching, if you're like in Breda, I literally thought that Breda was like close to Amsterdam. And for everybody internationally here who's like, what the fuck is Breda? It's a city, and also I don't know how to explain it for you international people. Just think of like a random, well, it's not a random city, it's one of the big cities in the Netherlands, but like, it's basically just like, oh yeah, I thought that city was next to the capital, even though it's like completely to the south. It's just like, yeah. I don't know how I can explain geography. I shouldn't probably. Anyways, I did try when it came to the gift shop, get some of the old elements, or at least the elements of the old gift shop. So I wanted to have like the bump out where the door was, have large windows there, have the circular window on top, but do it in a kind of different way, and just using a different color palette makes it look so much different. Like, I could build the original building completely, well, I could actually just take it and just recolor it, and it would look significantly different. So that's just to explain what you're building. Don't forget to take into account how much of an impact color has, because just like the minutest change in color can make a building look very heavy, but then also could make it look very airy and such. So just make sure that like when you're building something, really take a few minutes to think of like what color palette are you using. Before you ask, is this an explanation video? No, it's not. It's just Poison is going insane and he had that topic on his mind, and now he's just kind of explaining things. So this is kind of the explanation that you would see in those explanatory videos, although a lot less rambly and a lot more focused. Because now it's just like, oh yeah, this, that, there's that. With those explanation videos, I would actually kind of sit down and focus my thoughts, which I can do because I do it for work. Like, I'm not as chaotic in real life. I really like routines and such. And so all of the chaotic bits of me are just kind of pulled together over the time, and then in these videos I just let it all loose, and you guys are the benefactors or victims of that. You can decide for yourself. Anyways, I also just want to quickly mention, I did that first bit of the video so many times because, again, I wanted to be focused and, you know, make it understandable, because I'm very bad at explaining things. This is why I don't do tutorial videos. But because I did it so much, my throat is now just pain. It's just an agony. Because if you keep speaking for like 2 hours and then you delete that all, like all of the attempts, yeah, your voice is going to get raspy and sounding like you deep-throated cheese graters. Although it also feels like I swallowed the Sahara Desert. We only get bits of that in the summer usually, because like this wind changes and then we get Sahara sand and then our cars get really dirty because that's also just a thing. So as I said, as I've mentioned a lot previously, I now have a job. I also bought 3 new suits because I got the end of year bonus, and I really like suits, but all of the suits that I had were like from end of high school, so I didn't fit in none of them. I could literally hulk out of those suits. I didn't do it, mainly because like, why would I? But I bought new suits, and I really like them, and I'm probably going to start wearing them a lot. But like, the car, keeping it clean. Because like with the recent colds where it's like below freezing, they put like salt on the roads, which is a normal thing. It also means that the windows on my car get incredibly dirty, because as you're driving, not only do you get like little pieces of rubber from like tires, because that happens, or that's just a continuous process where you're riding, like basically your tires get sanded down and that sticks on the road, and as you're driving that gets flung up. But then also with like the salt on the roads, that gets flung up, and it all just comes onto the window. So I have to clean my car constantly. Now I luckily have like wipes that like, it's not like a full clean, but it'll basically just like quickly cleans your window until you actually wash your car. But like, I've been using those constantly because it's just like, why can't the weather in the Netherlands make up its mind? One day it's like 15 degrees, it's sunny and such. The next day it's freezing. And then the roads get salted again, and all of that dirt gets thrown onto my window again, and I don't like it. I like the car. Weirdly. Here's the thing with cars. I'm not a car person. I have no... Like, it took me a month to remember... Oh yeah, this is the... What is it called in English? Like in Dutch it's called het merk, which I don't know what it's called. What's it called in English? Like sometimes I just forget English words and it's just what? But like the type of car that I drive. It's not type, but like the name or the brand of car that I drive. That's the actual word I was looking for, brand. But like the brand of car that I drive, it took me a month before I remembered it. And to this day, if you see any other car and ask me what brand is that, I have no idea. I think I know Volkswagen, because that actually, saying Volkswagen sounds really weird. I think that's the English pronunciation, but like in Dutch we call it Volkswagen, which, yeah, there you get your Dutch of the day, the guttural G sound, the Volkswagen. But like, I probably remember that car because like the symbol or like the icon for that brand, I just remember. But like every other car, I'm just like, I have no idea. I just like that, like I can now just, if it's rainy, I can just take the car to the gym. Although when it's summer, I preferably take a bike. Also because I don't have to clean the bike as much as the car. And the car or the bike, even if I have to clean it, it's significantly smaller. Anyways, let's talk about the build and not talk about my car, because I'm not going to become a car person. I never will be. The car is a form of transport for me. Anyways, let's talk about the actual build itself, because we're getting close to the interior. Actually, we're doing already parts of the interior, but like we're getting closer to the actual goodies on display, which was so tiresome. Also, I found the smallest piece in Planet Coaster 2. I constantly want to say Planet Coaster. I think if I say Planet Coaster, you guys know or will understand that I'm meaning Planet Coaster 2. But like, there's a bag that you can put, it's like on the scenery, under like the dots. I don't know what it's called, but like there's a bag there. Just like a normal, well, not normal, but like a medieval looking bag. It can be tiny, like literally tiny. It can be the size of a pebble. And I'm just wondering, what am I going to use this for? Like what? Why can this thing be really tiny? And then also there's some other, like, there's some wall pieces that can be smaller than others. It's just, why are some pieces really tiny? And some pieces that I would love to have tiny are not. It's infuriating sometimes. But then I know that's like, yeah, there's limitations. And some pieces like, yeah, whenever are you going to use those tiny? The glass pieces would be great if they were small, tiny. Because the glass pieces that I used for the display, that's the smallest they can be. Also, when it came to like the displays and the counters and everything, I don't think anyone is surprised that they are inspired by the Efteling in the Netherlands. Like the gift shop of the Efteling. Most of the displays are inspired by that. And then I also, because now we are starting to build the goodies. Like the things that are on display, the things that you can buy. First of all, I needed to make a shirt. Because with every theme park, sometimes even with like significant rides, like if you have like a significant coaster or something, you will have merchandise or souvenirs of that. And a lot of the times, that also includes hoodies and such. Now with Planet Coaster, we had fabric. So I wanted to make these hoodies or these shirts out of fabric. I eventually made it work, but it also looks like it's very roughly. But it kind of looks like a shirt. So I just was like, alright, I'm happy with this. Maybe it can be better, but this is good enough for me. And sometimes that's just the thing. Sometimes it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be. So when it came to these shirts, it was just like, yes. I made some like hangers from rope. They, again, don't really look like hangers, but good enough again. And then it was just like, alright, put them on display. I think I wanted to find like the actual hanging bit, like the hook of the hanger. Eventually it was just like, yeah, it's so tiny. I don't think anyone is going to mind if it doesn't actually have a hook. So I just made that. I made sure that the shirt was separated from the hanger, so that when we're building Mythos, I will probably go back here and theme some of the pieces to rides. Like I have an idea for like a coaster in the Japanese area, and I already know, oh yeah, it's going to be very different from the main colors of the Japanese area. So that would make very great merchandising for like that coaster in particular, because it's just like so significantly different that you can immediately see, oh, that's right, like that coaster. It's like kind of fun to have those kinds of hints that like, oh yeah, this coaster is going to have like a small gift shop with like a significantly different color palettes, just so that like you immediately know, oh, that's of this coaster. And to then have that in the main souvenir shop, because it's on the main road or the main street, this should be like the main souvenir shop. This is where a lot of all of the other souvenirs that you can find spread around the park, they are also be able to be bought here. Whereas all of those other souvenir shops only have like souvenirs of that area or that attraction. But to then have all of that in here. So then we got to my favorite part, which is building plushies. Now these were inspired by the plushies that we have of like the animals in Planet Zoo. Not the actual Frontier made plushies, but I forgot who made those plushies. But they were made of like the gutter pieces. And I've been using those everywhere in Planet Zoo. And then I was just like, we have these gutter pieces in Planet Coaster as well. And we can actually resize them. So I went nuts building plushies. First, I needed to make plushies of like the characters of the Main Street or Mythos itself. Now, here it's just like, alright, these characters need to be kind of steampunky. I wanted to have like a male and a female character. Now, there's no entertainers of these, but to just kind of hint that these would be like the characters of Mythos as in the park and the Main Street itself. Because every park is going to have like different characters. And then there's some entertainers that came with Planet Coaster that I can use, like the Greek one and the Viking one. I also will always have Gulpy in the park because the Gulpy is just life. Gulpy is love. So we're always going to have a Gulpy. So I needed to make a plushie of them as well. All of the other entertainers, like the one, like the Surf Shark, I probably won't be able to use. Like the Deep Sea Diver, I probably won't be able to use. I'm never going to use King Coaster or Queen Splash because it's just, for me, those two just go into Uncanny Valley just because of the weird shiny legs and then the huge torso. The costume just kind of, for some weird reason, freaks me out. But yeah, I basically was just like, I need plushies. So I made plushies. And then I spent like 5 days just making a plushie. Every day was just a different plushie. And with the first two plushies, those are like the characters of Mythos itself, as in the entire park. So they needed to be like steampunk, Edwardian, Victorian, kind of like I say Victorian, Edwardian. Basically what I'm referring to is like the time period of like and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation because it's French, but the Belle Epoque. I think it's Belle Epoque, but I don't know how you precisely explain it, but it's when like France was seen as like the highlight of culture around the world. So I was just like, I want that time period, and then I want it to kind of be like inventors. So I gave them cogs in the hats and like metal decoration in the hats, but then the rest of the clothing is completely just like regular clothing from that time period. But I like the idea that they're inventors. It doesn't really show in the costume itself, but then these are also plushies. You can't really put so much detail in plushies. And then I made Gulpy, because as I said, it's no park of mine if there's not at least one Gulpy running around. Yes, there's already a Gulpy in the park. He might have already shown up in like cinematic shots, but there's just something about Gulpy that I just really like. There's also just something about King Coaster and Queen Splash that I just really don't like. But yeah, basically I just made Gulpy, I made the Greek entertainer and the Viking one, because we're going to have a Greek area and we're going to have a Viking or Norse area. So it made sense to like, oh yeah, we need those entertainers in plushie form, because one of the main things, or one of the big things that you would find in souvenir shops in coaster or theme parks would be plushies of like the entertainers or like characters from the rides. So to not have these plushies while still having the entertainers, it just felt a little bit off. And also just like, yeah, we have these entertainers, I am going to use them. I have a feeling that like recently they said like, or Planet Coaster or Frontier said like, oh, we're going to have the Western style come back. Does that also mean we're going to get the Western entertainer back? That would be really nice if we got the entertainer as well. Because that would just make sense to, like, if you want to build a Western area, you're going to have a Western entertainer there. It makes no sense if you suddenly have like the Surfer Shark there. I have to kind can you actually set it so that entertainers stick to one area, like they have in Disney, where like you will never see like, I think Aladdin, let's use him as example, in like Tomorrowland. You will never see like characters out of place. It would make, or it would make sense. It would be really nice if we could actually do that in Planet Coaster. To like make it so that the Greek entertainer doesn't leave the Greek area, and the Viking entertainer doesn't leave the Norse area. Gulpy is just free to run around wherever. Like, we're not putting any restraints on Gulpy. Gulpy is free. But then also like have the Mythos and, well, actually the Mythos entertainers could also just be everywhere, because I have the idea of like, oh yeah, all of the different areas in Mythos are like connected by portals, and the portals are created by the Mythos characters, the ones that I made plushies from. So those could actually show up in all of the other areas as like kind of like tourists. It would be funny to see like those interactions, like between like a Greek entertainer and then like the Mythos entertainer just shows up and it's just like, what the fuck are you? Like the Greek entertainer is just like, what? Why are you dressed like that? It would most likely not be, well, it would most likely be like sort of child-friendly interactions, but I don't think that Mythos would, like, they would allow the entertainers to mildly curse. I mean, the Viking entertainer just needs to curse, but just like in old Viking slang, so nobody understands it. Maybe the Greek one does as well. And then the Mythos entertainer is just like, oh, jolly. I don't know why, whenever I think of like, oh, well, I said like, oh, it's Ballad Box, so it should be French. I don't know what the equivalent of, oh, jolly is in French. What is like, just exasperate, I don't know if it's exasperations, but like just things like that, but then in French, because like every language has those kinds of sentences or words that you just like bleep or blurb out. Not bleep out as in censoring, but just like you say those like very quickly if like something surprises you or something, or just like you want to curse but you don't want to curse, if you know what I mean. Like there's children around, you don't want to like wish death upon them, but like you want them to know. Like I think like I heard that like in the south of the US it's like bless your heart, and it's like you really just want them to want to say go fuck yourself, but you know, you say it in a nice way. That I think that's in the south of the US, I don't know for sure. Maybe I'm misrepresenting the US now in its entirety. But anyways, back to the actual build. So we are done building the plushies. Now I didn't show you all the plushies because I have a Japanese plushies, which is, one of them is a geisha, or at least like geisha, but like not fully proper, because that would maybe be disrespectful. But then also have like a Japanese raccoon dog. I was inspired by, I'm going to butcher this name, but Denzaburo. I learned of him from Smite, which, if you didn't know, Poisonblade, as in the name of this channel, actually comes from my Smite handle, because I just couldn't think of another name, and I didn't want a name that's like heavily tied to a game, so I was just like, yeah, we're going to use that. Anyway, so I know Denzaburo, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, from like Smite, and I was just like, I want him as like a character because he's like, he could be fluffy. The other idea was a spider, but I don't think that's going to be child friendly, so we don't want a plushie of that. So it was just like, oh yeah, we're going to have that, and we could have a ride to him, so that would make sense. Like a geisha for like a Japanese area just makes sense just because it's Japanese, and you have to kind of also work with like what's the most familiar ideas from that era. So when it came to like the Arthurian era, of course one of the plushies is King Arthur. And then I thought like, oh, am I going to make like a knight, so like Lancelot? And I was just like, yeah, that's just going to be like a plushie with like a helmet on. Basically it's just Arthur with the helmet on. So then I was just like, no, we're going to build Guinevere. So I was allowed to go crazy with like medieval clothes. which is also fun, to try and make clothes that are somewhat accurate, not totally accurate, because it's a theme park, so it's going to have a little bit of flair. But then do that tiny sized. Just like that challenge. Also, if you don't know why we're now building in the dark, it's because all of like the framing on the walls was very difficult to see during daytime, because it's pretty much the same color as the walls itself. So I had to build this during nighttime just so that I could see the actual framing and like all of the detail work on the walls. Most of this you won't really be able to see, unless you're really looking for it, but it's just that nice little detail. And then the potting in the gift shop. Oh, this was a horror. This I tried like multiple different times. I had to actually delete 2 displays just because the potting of the guests would constantly clip through it, or they wouldn't actually be able to get to the counters in the back of the gift shop. Because I wanted the counters in the back just so that you'd see the actual guests walking through the gift shop. Otherwise, there would be a majority of the gift shop that the guests would just not go through, which to me kind of killed the immersion, even though guests clipping through the displays is still kind of immersion breaking. But I tried to deal with this by having some fences. Yes, the guests will still clip through some parts of the displays, but I just like how it looks with the guests walking through the gift shop. Yes, they go straight towards the counter, but it still is a little bit more immersive than just having the counters in the front, even though that would be massively better when it came to the potting of the guests. And here you can see all of the plushies. So you can see Dancerborough, you can see the Geisha, you can see Queen Arthur and Guinevere. I will probably also have to build more plushies, because we're going to have an Arabian area. We're going to have another area. I probably also need to expand like the Norse area with another plushie and the Greek area, because I want to have like 2 plushies of every area. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. Again, let me know down below in the comments if you are interested in videos that are smaller but more heavy on the explanation and more focused on the actual build itself. Let me know down below in the comments if you're interested in that. And with that being said, I wish you all a wonderful day, guys. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more. And again, have a wonderful day, guys. Bye bye.